The nebula swallowed the Vryn fleet like a living thing. Streams of ionized gas glowed red and purple. Beautiful and deadly, magnetic storms played havoc with sensors. The neural network that connected all Vryn ships began to fragment, disrupted by the dense particle clouds. Commander Taemin felt the disconnection immediately. For the first time in 300 years, he could not sense the other ships in his fleet. Each vessel became an island, forced to rely on short-range communications and visual sensors. It was like losing half his senses. Maintain formation, he ordered. Do not pursue individual contacts. Stay together. But his subordinate, Sang-Woo, voiced the concern that Taemin himself felt. Commander, this is a trap. The human captain has drawn us into an environment where we cannot coordinate. We should withdraw and engage at long range. We have 300 ships against one, Taemin snapped. Even blind and deaf, we outnumber them overwhelmingly. The High Arbiter has commanded this human ship destroyed. We will not fail again. Deep in the nebula, the defiant Dawn moved through the gas clouds like a ghost. Captain Jinwoo watched his sensors carefully. The Vryn formation was breaking apart, ships spreading out to search for him. Perfect. Engineer Daeun, status on the reactor? Running hot, Captain. I've got maybe 30 minutes before we need to shut down. Then we make these 30 minutes count. Jae-sung, take us toward grid reference 7. Nice and slow. The defiant Dawn drifted through the nebula, barely using its engines. On the tactical display, Jinwoo watched 3 Vryn destroyers move into the area he had mined most heavily. He waited until they were in the center of the kill zone. Detonate mines 7 through 15. The fusion mines exploded simultaneously. Each mine was equivalent to a 100-megaton nuclear weapon. 8 of them detonated within 2 kilometers of the Vryn destroyers. The explosions merged into a miniature sun that turned the gas clouds white-hot. When the light faded, the 3 Vryn ships were gone. Simply erased from existence. The shockwave from the explosion rippled through the nebula. 6 more Vryn ships, caught on the periphery of the blast, suffered catastrophic damage. Their biometal hulls cracked. Systems failed. Crews died. Lieutenant Haewon stared at her instruments in horror. Commander, we've lost 9 ships. The humans mined the nebula. They lured us into a trap. Taemin's 3 eyes narrowed. All ships, emergency dispersal pattern. Get out of the nebula now. But panic had set in. Vryn ships began accelerating in all directions, trying to escape the minefield they could not see. In their haste, formations broke completely. Ships collided with each other in the dense gas clouds. More vessels struck mines and died in silent fury. The defiant Dawn struck again and again. Captain Jinwoo had studied the Vryn for 18 hours of continuous combat. He knew how they thought, how they moved, how they reacted to threats. Now he used that knowledge like a weapon. Fire rail cannons, targets of opportunity. The depleted uranium slugs tore through the nebula. One struck a Vryn cruiser that was trying to navigate around a gas cloud. The projectile punched through the engineering section, and the ship went dead. Another slug hit a destroyer attempting to reach clear space. The impact sent the vessel spinning out of control into a dense particle stream that shredded what remained of its hull. Commander Taemin felt his fleet coming apart. The neural network was completely disrupted. Ships were dying faster than he could track. The human warships seemed to be everywhere at once, striking and vanishing before anyone could return fire. Sang-Woo, get me a count of our losses, he ordered. His subordinate's voice was shaken. 23 ships destroyed, Commander. Another 37 damaged, many critically. And we still haven't located the human vessel. 23 ships, in less than an hour. Against one enemy that by all logic should have been destroyed in the first minute of combat. Taemin made a decision that would haunt him for the rest of his life. All ships retreat to the nebula edge. Reform at Rally Point Delta. It was the first time in recorded history that a Vryn commander had ordered a tactical retreat from an inferior force. High Arbiter. Yejin felt the retreat through the neural network. The moment the fleet cleared the nebula's interference, the connections re-established. She experienced every commander's fear, every crew member's shock. The collective consciousness of the Vryn military was tainted with something they had not felt in millennia. Fear. Commander Taemin, her mental voice crashed into his consciousness like a hammer. You retreat from a single ship? High Arbiter, the humans have— I do not care what the humans have. I care that you have failed. Again. Yejin withdrew from the network and convened the council. Counselor Donghyun spoke first. We must consider negotiation. These humans are not like other species. They do not fight to win. They fight to survive, and species that fight for survival are the most dangerous. Negotiation? Another counselor scoffed. We have never negotiated with lesser species. To do so now would undermine 12,000 years of dominance. Then what do you propose? Donghyun challenged. We have committed 350 ships to this sector. We have lost over 40 and accomplished nothing except proving that humans can destroy our vessels. How many more ships will we lose? How many more crews will die before we admit this approach is failing? The debate raged through the neural network. Some counselors advocated for deploying the entire Vrin Armada, 10,000 ships to crush one human world. Others suggested withdrawing to study human technology and develop counters. A few, led by Donghyun, quietly whispered the unthinkable: peace. War historian Kyung-soo submitted his report directly to the council debate. The data was clear. Every species that had initially surprised the Vrin had proven capable of rapid technological advancement. The Salith, the Morvan, others whose names were forgotten. All of them had adapted faster than the Vrin could respond. Humanity had gone from first contact to defeating a sector annihilation fleet in less than 24 hours. What would they be capable of in a month, a year, a decade? On the defiant dawn, Captain Jinwoo watched the Vrin fleet retreat. His crew cheered, exhausted but triumphant. They had survived. Against all odds, they had survived. Captain, incoming transmission from Admiral Sunho, the communications officer reported. Sunho's face appeared on the screen. Jinwoo, the relief fleet is arriving now. Commander Miran is bringing 12 ships. Well done, Captain. Well done. Jinwoo nodded wearily. We got lucky, Admiral. And we won't get lucky twice. These Vrin will adapt. They'll come back stronger. I know. That's why we're adapting too. Every ship in the fleet is being upgraded with your shield design. We're tripling rail cannon production, and we're building more ships like the Defiant Dawn. Sunho paused. You've bought us time, Captain. Now we'll use it to show these aliens that humanity doesn't scare easy. As the relief fleet arrived, Commander Miran's ships spread out in defensive formation. Her 12 warships were all equipped with adaptive shields and enhanced kinetic weapons. The sight of them made Commander Taemin's remaining confidence crumble. The humans had not sent their only ship. They had sent their experimental ship. The rest of their fleet was coming. And if one ship could do this much damage, what could 100 do? For the first time in his long career, Taemin understood that the Vrin Collective might have finally encountered an enemy they could not defeat through force alone. High Arbiter Yejin convened the Vrin Council within the neural network. 7 minds, each representing a galaxy under their control, merged into a single consciousness. The news from the human sector burned like acid through their collective awareness. 8 ships destroyed, 12 damaged, 1 primitive warship, Counselor Donghyun stated. His mental voice carried disbelief. How is this possible? Yejin projected the battle data into their shared consciousness. The council watched Captain Jinwoo's tactics, the adaptive shields, the brutal efficiency of kinetic weapons. When the replay finished, silence dominated the network for a long moment. We authorize deployment of a sector annihilation fleet, Yejin declared. 300 ships. This human infestation will be burned from existence. On the Vrin homeworld, war historian Kyung-soo received the council's decision with growing dread. He was old, even by Vrin standards, and he had devoted his life to studying the species that had resisted their expansion. There were not many. Perhaps 20 civilizations in 12,000 years had managed to bloody the Vrin before falling. But there was a pattern. Always a pattern. Kyung-soo accessed the ancient archives, pulling up records from 3,000 years ago. The Salith Confederacy had surprised the Vrin with crystalline weapons that bypassed their shields. Initial engagements had been costly, but within 2 years the Salith had adapted their technology so rapidly that Vrin forces found themselves outmatched. It had taken a planetary genocide to finally break their resistance. 5,000 years ago, the Morvan Collective had developed jamming technology that disrupted Vrin neural networks. Early battles had been chaos. Then the Morvan had upgraded their systems, added redundancies, created countermeasures. The war had lasted 8 years and cost the Vrin more ships than any other conflict in their history. The pattern was clear. Species that could surprise the Vrin were not just lucky. They were innovative, adaptive, dangerous. And the longer they survived, the more dangerous they became. Kyung-soo drafted a report and sent it directly to High Arbiter Ye-jin. He knew it would be ignored. The Vryn had become arrogant after 12,000 years of victory. They no longer believed they could lose. In human space, the defiant Dawn played a desperate game of survival. Captain Jinwoo had been fighting for 18 hours straight. His crew was exhausted. The ship's shields were down to 30% efficiency. Ammunition for the rail cannons was running low, but he had accomplished something remarkable. The Vryn fleet had not advanced toward the colonies. Commander Taemin had become cautious, keeping his ships at long range and trying to wear down the human warship through sustained bombardment. "Captain, we've got incoming jump signatures," Jae-sung announced from navigation. "Multiple contacts. Big ones." The tactical display updated. Jinwoo felt his stomach drop. 300 new Vryn warships materialized at the edge of the system. The Sector Annihilation Fleet had arrived. Engineer Da-eun's voice came through the intercom. "Captain, I can give you maybe 1 more hour at full power. After that, the reactor will need a complete shutdown for repairs or it'll melt down." Jinwoo studied the tactical situation. 340 Vryn ships now surrounded him. The relief fleet from Earth was still 3 hours away. There was no winning this fight. There was no surviving it either. "Listen up," he said to his crew. "I'm transmitting all our tactical data to Admiral Sunho right now. Everything we've learned about these aliens, every weakness we've found, it's all being sent home. Our job is done. We proved that humans can fight these bastards. We proved they can bleed." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "I'm giving anyone who wants it permission to evacuate via the escape pods. You've all earned it. You've all done more than anyone could ask." Silence answered him. Then Engineer Da-eun spoke. "With respect, Captain, if you think I'm abandoning my reactor in the middle of a fight, you don't know me very well." "Navigation staying put, sir," Jae-sung added. "Someone's got to fly this boat." One by one, every crew member reported in. No one was leaving. Jinwoo felt a surge of pride that nearly broke through his exhaustion. Then let's give them a fight they'll remember for the next 12,000 years. Commander Taemin watched the human warship from the bridge of the Eternal Fist. Science officer Bora stood beside him, analyzing the data they had collected over 18 hours of combat. "The humans are tactically unpredictable," she reported. "They do not follow standard combat doctrines. Watch this." She played back a sequence where the Defiant Dawn had used a destroyed Vryn ship as cover, actually pushing the wreckage toward incoming plasma fire to create a shield. No Vryn commander would think of this. "We treat our ships as sacred. The humans treat everything as a potential weapon." Taemin studied the analysis. The human ship was damaged, running low on ammunition, clearly at the end of its capabilities. The logical action would be to surrender. Instead, it was moving toward the nebula cluster at the edge of the system. "What is in that nebula?" he asked. Lieutenant Haewon checked her sensors. "Heavy particle density. Magnetic interference. Our sensors will be partially blinded in there. Communication through the neural network will be disrupted. And the human ship? They appear to be equipped for operations in high-interference environments. Their technology is more primitive, less dependent on sophisticated sensors." Taemin understood. The human captain was not running away. He was choosing his battleground, drawing the Vryn fleet into an environment where their technological superiority would be reduced. "Inform the fleet," Taemin ordered. "We pursue but maintain tight formation. Do not let them separate us." But even as he gave the order, Taemin felt that new emotion again. Doubt. This human captain had proven too clever, too resourceful. What other surprises did he have waiting in that nebula? On Earth, Admiral Sunho received Captain Jinwoo's final data transmission. Engineers were already analyzing it, designing countermeasures, preparing new weapons. But it would take weeks to implement, maybe months. Jinwoo and his crew did not have weeks. "Sir, the relief fleet is still 2 hours out," his second-in-command reported. "Should we signal Captain Jinwoo to disengage?" Sunho shook his head. "Jinwoo knows the situation. He's buying us time. The best thing we can do is make sure his sacrifice means something." He turned to the engineering teams. "I want production of those adaptive shields started immediately. Every ship in the fleet gets upgraded. And someone figure out how to make our rail cannons hit harder. If kinetic weapons are our advantage, let's exploit it." In the nebula, Captain Jinwoo prepared his final surprise. The Defiant Dawn's cargo bay held 30 fusion mines, originally meant for defensive fortifications. His crew had been deploying them throughout the nebula for the last hour, creating a minefield that the Vryn sensors could barely detect through the interference. All mines deployed and armed, Engineer Daeun reported. Remote detonation standing by. Jinwoo watched the Vryn fleet enter the nebula. 300 ships advancing in formation, hunting a single damaged human warship. He smiled grimly. Time to show them that humanity had learned a thing or two about hunting. The first volley from the Vryn fleet should have ended everything. 30 ships opened fire simultaneously, their plasma cascade weapons releasing torrents of superheated energy that could melt through planetary crust. The beams converged on the defiant Dawn from multiple angles, a killing pattern perfected over millennia of conquest. Commander Taemin watched with satisfaction. In 3 seconds, the human ship would be vaporized. In 10 minutes, his fleet would begin orbital bombardment. By morning, this sector would be part of the Vryn Collective, another footnote in their endless history of victories. The plasma beam struck the defiant Dawn dead center, and something impossible happened. The human warship's shields flared bright blue, then seemed to ripple like water. The plasma energy hit the barrier and scattered, redistributing across the entire shield surface. Instead of concentrating force on one point, the beams spread out, their power diluted. The defiant Dawn shuddered but held together. Lieutenant Haewon's 3 eyes widened in shock. Commander, their shields are adapting to our weapons. The energy is being absorbed and dispersed across their entire defensive grid. Taemin leaned forward. That's impossible. No species develops adaptive shielding until they've been fighting for at least a century. These humans just discovered us today. Before he could issue new orders, the defiant Dawn returned fire. The human ship's rail cannons were primitive by galactic standards, simple kinetic weapons that accelerated solid metal projectiles to a fraction of light speed. The Vryn had faced such weapons before thousands of years ago, and their biometal armor had evolved specifically to handle energy-based threats. But the engineers of the defiant Dawn had done their homework. Each projectile was a depleted uranium slug, weighing 5 tons, traveling at 30% of light speed. When they impacted Vryn biometal, they didn't burn through it. They punched through it. The first slug hit the Vryn destroyer Crimson Talon amidships. The projectile penetrated the armor, tore through 3 decks, and exited out the other side. Atmosphere vented from the wounds. Internal systems exploded. The Crimson Talon spun out of formation, trailing debris and dying crew members. The second and third slug struck another destroyer. This ship was less fortunate. The projectiles hit the reactor containment vessel, and the resulting explosion turned the entire warship into an expanding cloud of superheated gas. The fourth slug missed, but the fifth struck the cruiser Eternal Doom directly in its command section. Commander Taemin watched in horror as one of his capital ships lost helm control and began drifting. 3 Vryn warships destroyed or crippled in the opening exchange. It was unprecedented. It was unthinkable. It was terrifying. All ships evasive maneuvers, Taemin shouted. Tactical analysis now. Haewon's fingers flew across her console. Her voice trembled slightly as she reported. Commander, the human kinetic weapons are bypassing our bioshields entirely. Our defenses are designed to deflect or absorb energy. These solid projectiles simply ignore the shields and impact the hull directly. How is that possible? Taemin demanded. Every species uses energy weapons. It's the most efficient method of space combat. Apparently not every species, Commander. The defiant Dawn accelerated toward the Vryn fleet, its rail cannons firing continuously. Each shot was carefully aimed, targeting weak points in the Vryn formations. Captain Jinwoo stood on his bridge, watching the tactical display with grim satisfaction. Direct hit on Target 7, his weapons officer reported. Target 12 is venting atmosphere. Target 19 has lost power to its main engines. Engineer Daeun's voice came through from below decks. Captain, shields are holding at 85%. That adaptive matrix is working better than we hoped. We can take a few more hits, Jinwoo nodded. Good. Jae-sung, take us into the thick of their formation. I want to get close enough that they can't coordinate their fire without hitting each other. That's insane, sir, Jae-sung replied, but he was already plotting the course. His fingers danced across the navigation controls. Course laid in. We'll be in the middle of them in 90 seconds. The defiant Dawn dove into the Vryn fleet like a knife. Plasma beams crisscrossed around it, some missing, others striking the shields. The adaptive barriers held. The warning lights began flashing across the bridge. The human ship twisted and turned using momentum and precise thruster burns to dodge the worst of the incoming fire. Commander Tamian realized his mistake too late. His ships were designed for long-range bombardment, not close-quarters maneuvering. The Vryn had not fought an enemy that wanted to get close in over 5,000 years. His fleet's weapons were too powerful, too destructive. If they fired at full strength now, they would hit their own vessels. All ships fall back to maximum weapons range, he ordered. Reform the battle line. But the human captain had anticipated this. As the Vryn ships began to withdraw, the Defiant Dawn pursued the closest targets, preventing them from establishing a safe firing position. 2 more destroyers died under the relentless rail cannon barrage. A cruiser lost its jump drive and went dead in space. High Arbiter Ye-Jin watched the battle through the neural network. Her ancient mind struggled to process what she was seeing. The Vryn fleet was retreating. Retreating! From a single enemy ship belonging to a species they had discovered less than an hour ago. She sent a direct command to Commander Tamian. Explain this failure. Tamian felt the weight of her consciousness pressing against his mind. High Arbiter, the humans possess technology we did not anticipate. Their defensive systems and weaponry are crude but effective against our tactics. I am repositioning the fleet to adapt. Adapt? Ye-Jin's mental voice was cold. The Vryn do not adapt to primitives. We destroy them. You have 49 ships remaining. Use them. Yes, High Arbiter. But Tamian's hand shook as he closed the connection. For the first time in 300 years of service, he felt something new. Doubt. On Earth, Admiral Sunho watched the battle data streaming in. Every officer in the war room stood frozen, barely daring to breathe. The Defiant Dawn had survived the initial engagement. More than survived, it had drawn blood. Captain Jinwoo is performing beyond all expectations, Sunho said quietly. But he can't keep this up. One ship can only do so much. His second-in-command nodded. The relief fleet won't arrive for another 6 hours, sir. Can he hold that long? Sunho studied the tactical display. The Vryn were regrouping, moving to longer range where their numbers would matter more. The Defiant Dawn's shields were degrading. Its ammunition was limited. Physics and mathematics did not care about courage or skill. Eventually the numbers would win. Signal all nearby vessels, Sunho ordered. Maximum speed to that sector. And get me the engineering teams. I want to know how to mass-produce those adaptive shields. If one ship can do this, imagine what 100 could do. In space, the battle continued. Captain Jinwoo knew he could not win. That had never been the objective. But every minute he kept the Vryn occupied was another minute for civilians to escape. Another minute for Earth to prepare. Another minute to prove that humanity would not submit. The Defiant Dawn fired again. Another Vryn ship fell. And Commander Tamian, for the first time in his long career, wondered if the Vryn Collective had finally encountered something they could not conquer. The darkness between stars held no mysteries for the Vryn Collective. For 12,000 years they had ruled over 7 galaxies with absolute authority. Their warships moved through space like living creatures. Biomechanical monsters that fed on the energy of defeated worlds. No species had ever challenged their dominance and survived. Commander Tamian stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Fist. His skin was pale blue, almost translucent, and his 3 eyes scanned the holographic displays before him. He had commanded fleets for 300 years, and every encounter followed the same pattern. A new species would be discovered. They would resist. They would fall. It was the natural order of the universe. Today's sensor readings showed something different, though. A small cluster of colonies in an uncharted sector, belonging to a species that called themselves humans. The initial scans were disappointing. Primitive fusion reactors, basic kinetic weapons. Their fastest ships barely managed to break light speed. Tamian felt a twinge of boredom. This would be over in a matter of hours. High Arbiter Ye-Jin watched from the Vryn homeworld, her consciousness linked to every ship in the fleet through the neural network. She was ancient even by Vryn standards, having guided the collective for 2,000 years. The discovery of humanity meant little to her. They were insects to be catalogued and absorbed into the Empire. She sent the command through the network. 50 warships would be dispatched. Standard subjugation protocol. The humans would be given one chance to surrender. When they refused, as primitives always did, the fleet would demonstrate the consequences of defiance. A few orbital bombardments usually convinced survivors to accept Vryn rule. Taman received his orders and smiled. 50 ships for this task was generous. He could have managed with 10. But the High Arbiter was thorough, and the Vryn did not believe in taking chances. The fleet assembled in formation, each ship stretching nearly 2 kilometers in length. Their biometal hulls pulsed with stored energy. Weapons charged, jump drives activated. The journey took 6 days. The Vryn fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of the human territory. Taman immediately deployed sensor drones to map the system. 13 colonies spread across 5 planets. Total population approximately 8 million. Pathetic, really. Most Vryn cities held more inhabitants than this entire sector. The humans detected them almost immediately. Taman watched their communications channels light up with panic. Distress signals, emergency broadcasts, civilian ships fleeing toward the outer planets. It was all so predictable. He had seen this dance 1,000 times before. What surprised him was the single warship that began moving to intercept his fleet. One ship. Against 50 of the most powerful vessels ever constructed, Taman's tactical officer, Lieutenant Haywan, brought up the scanner data. The human warship was smaller than their smallest escort vessel. It appeared to be newly constructed, with unusual energy signatures emanating from its reactor core. Its weapons were laughable. Solid projectile cannons, missile tubes, nothing that could scratch Vryn biometal armor. "They are hailing us, Commander," Haywan reported. Her voice carried a note of curiosity. In her 30 years of service, she had never seen a single ship challenge a subjugation fleet. Taman activated the communication channel. A human face appeared on the display. Male with dark hair and eyes that showed no fear. The human wore a military uniform with insignia that suggested command authority. "I am Captain Jinwoo of the Terran Defense Force warship Defiant Dawn," the human said. His voice was steady. "You have entered sovereign human territory. State your intentions or withdraw immediately," Taman laughed. The sound echoed across the bridge. Several of his officers joined him. The audacity of this primitive creature was almost admirable. "I am Commander Taemin of the Vryn Dominion Fleet," he replied. "Your species has been selected for integration into the collective. Surrender your colonies and your people will be spared. Resist and we will turn your worlds to ash. You have 1 hour to decide." Captain Jinwoo's expression did not change. "I'm afraid that's not acceptable. Leave our space now, or we will use force to remove you." The communication channel closed from the human's end. Taman stared at the blank screen in disbelief. In 12,000 years of conquest, no species had ever terminated a negotiation with the Vryn. The arrogance of these humans was staggering. Lieutenant Haywan checked her instruments. "Commander, the human warship is moving to a position between our fleet and their colonies. They appear to be defending." "One ship," Taman said slowly. "They send one ship to stop 50. He felt something he had not experienced in decades. Not fear, certainly not that, but perhaps a flicker of interest. These humans were either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid, possibly both. On Earth, Admiral Sun Ho sat in the war room deep beneath the planet's surface. Holographic displays showed the Vryn fleet and the Defiant Dawn's position. Every officer in the room understood the mathematics. 50 against 1. They had minutes, perhaps an hour at most, before humanity's newest and most advanced warship was destroyed. But the Defiant Dawn was not meant to win. It was meant to buy time. Time for the colonies to evacuate. Time for Earth's main fleet to prepare. And most importantly, time to gather intelligence on these invaders. Every second of combat data would be transmitted back to human space, analyzed and used to develop countermeasures. Captain Jinwoo understood his mission. The Defiant Dawn was an experimental vessel, equipped with adaptive shielding that could redistribute energy from incoming weapons. Its reactor used a new fusion process that generated 3 times the power of standard human reactors. The engineers had called it a breakthrough. Now it would be tested in the only way that mattered. He addressed his crew. "All hands, battle stations. I won't lie to you. We're outnumbered and outgunned, but we're human and humans don't surrender. We're going to hit them hard, hit them fast, and show these aliens that we won't go quietly into their empire. Engineer Dayun, I need maximum power to shields and weapons." From the engineering deck, Dayun's voice came through clearly. "Reactor at 120%, Captain. I can push it higher if needed." Save that for when they start shooting, Jinwoo replied. He turned to his navigation officer. Jae-sung, plot an intercept course. Take us right down their throat. The Defiant Dawn accelerated toward the Vryn fleet. In the cold mathematics of space warfare, it should have been suicide. One human ship against an empire that had never known defeat. Commander Taemin watched the approaching vessel and gave the order he had given countless times before. All ships, open fire. The darkness between stars erupted with light and fury. The news spread like fire through the 7 galaxies. On 1,000 worlds under Vryn control, species that had lived in subjugation for centuries heard the impossible story. A single human warship had fought a Vryn fleet and survived. Not just survived. One on the mining colonies of Turthan 5, workers whispered the tale during their shifts. On the agricultural worlds of the 10th sector, farmers shared the story while harvesting crops for Vryn consumption. In every corner of the empire, the enslaved and the conquered asked the same question. If humans could resist, why couldn't they? High Arbiter Ye-jin felt the tremors through the neural network. Unrest, doubt, questions. For 12,000 years, the Vryn had maintained control through the perception of invincibility. Now that perception was cracking. She convened the council in emergency session. The human situation has become critical, not because of their military capability, but because of what their resistance represents. We must decide now. Do we commit our full forces to exterminating humanity, or do we pursue another path? War historian Kyung-soo attended the council session for the first time in his long career. His presence itself was unusual. Historians were not warriors. They did not make decisions. They merely recorded them. High Arbiter, with your permission, I have studied every conflict in our history. I can predict what will happen if we continue this war. Speak, Ye-jin commanded. Kyung-soo projected his data into the shared consciousness. Casualty projections, resource expenditures, timeline analyses. If we commit our full armada against humanity, we will win. Eventually. But the cost will be catastrophic. We will lose thousands of ships, tens of thousands of crew, and during that time, while our forces are committed to the human sector, what happens to the rest of the empire? He showed them simulations. Rebellions on subject worlds, pirates attacking undefended systems, other species testing Vryn resolve. The empire stretched across 7 galaxies. It was vast, but it was also fragile. Remove the military force maintaining control, and it would collapse. Worse, Kyung-soo continued, every day we fight the humans. They will adapt. Their technology will improve. What took one ship 24 hours to accomplish, 100 ships will accomplish in 1 hour. Within a year, they will match us. Within 10 years, they may surpass us. Counselor Dong-hyun added his voice. There is another option, one that no High Arbiter has ever considered. We negotiate. We recognize humanity as equals. We establish formal relations, equals, another counselor protested. They are primitives who stumbled upon adaptive shielding. They got lucky. Lucky? Lieutenant Hae-won had been granted permission to address the council. She transmitted her combat logs every moment of the battle. Watch how they fight. Watch their tactics. This was not luck. This was skill, innovation, and determination. Captain Jinwoo knew he could not win through strength, so he won through intelligence. Every move was calculated. Every trap was planned. The humans think differently than we do. That makes them dangerous, yes, but it also makes them valuable. The debate continued for hours. Some counselors advocated for total war. Others urged caution. A few supported negotiation. The Vryn Collective, for the first time in its history, was divided. Commander Taemin waited in his quarters, relieved of command but not yet punished. The disgrace of retreat weighed on him. But something else weighed more heavily. Respect. He had fought Captain Jinwoo for 24 hours. He had watched the human adapt, improvise, survive against impossible odds. That took more than luck. That took excellence. When the summons came, Taemin expected execution. Instead, he received new orders. He was to travel to a neutral station at the border of human space. He was to meet with human representatives. He was to negotiate. The word tasted strange in his mind. Negotiate. The Vryn did not negotiate, except now they did. Captain Jinwoo stood in the docking bay of Neutral Station Harmony, watching the Vryn shuttle approach. Admiral Sun Ho stood beside him. Commander Miran waited with a security detail. Earth's government had debated for 3 days before agreeing to this meeting. Many wanted to reject any discussion with the Vryn, but cooler heads had prevailed. War was expensive. War was deadly, and while humanity had proven it could hurt the Vryn, no one believed they could actually win a prolonged conflict. Not yet, maybe not ever. Better to talk first and fight later if needed. The Vryn shuttle docked. Commander Taemin emerged, accompanied only by Lieutenant Haywan. The Vryn commander's pale blue skin seemed dimmer than in the recordings. His 3 eyes studied the humans with an expression that might have been curiosity. "Captain Jinwoo," Taemin said in perfect English, translated through a device on his collar. "We meet at last without weapons between us." "Commander Taemin," Jinwoo replied. "You fought well. Under different circumstances, I think we might have been allies. That is why I am here, to determine if such circumstances can exist." They moved to a conference room. No weapons. No guards beyond the security detail outside. Just soldiers who had tried to kill each other now attempting to talk. Taemin spoke first. "My people have ruled for 12,000 years. In that time we have never encountered a species capable of resisting us effectively. You are the first. That makes you either a threat to be eliminated or an asset to be valued." "And which do you think we are?" Admiral Sunho asked. "Both. The question is which matters more." Lieutenant Haywan activated a holographic display. "This is the Vryn Empire. 7 galaxies, thousands of species, millions of worlds. We maintain order. We prevent chaos, but we do so through force. It is inefficient and, as you have proven, it is not absolute." She changed the display. "This is what the Council fears. If we commit our forces to destroying humanity, other species will rebel. We will fight wars on 100 fronts. The Empire will fracture. Everything we have built will collapse." Jinwoo understood. "So you need us to stand down, to accept subjugation peacefully?" "No," Taemin said quietly. "We need you to teach us." The humans exchanged glances. "Teach you what?" Commander Miran asked. "How to adapt. The Vryn have not changed in 12,000 years. We use the same ships, the same weapons, the same tactics that won us our first galaxy. We are stagnant. You defeated us not because your technology was superior, but because your thinking was different. In 24 hours you accomplished what should have been impossible. That is not technology. That is innovation." Counselor Dong-hyun appeared via hologram. "Captain Jinwoo, the Vryn Council offers humanity recognition as a sovereign species. We will withdraw from your territory. We will establish formal diplomatic relations. And in exchange we ask that you share your knowledge, not your weapons but your methods, how you train your officers to think creatively, how you encourage innovation, how you adapt so quickly." Admiral Sunho leaned back in his chair. "And what happens to all the other species in your empire? The ones you conquered?" "That," Dong-hyun admitted, "is a question we are still debating. Some counselors argue that maintaining control is necessary. Others believe that allowing more autonomy would strengthen rather than weaken us. Your victory has forced us to reconsider assumptions that have guided us for millennia." The negotiations continued for days. In the end, a treaty was drafted. Humanity would be recognized as equals. The Vryn would withdraw from human space and establish a demilitarized zone. In exchange, human military advisors would work with Vryn forces to reform their training and tactical doctrines. More importantly, the Vryn agreed to gradually grant autonomy to subject species, beginning with those who had been most loyal. It would take decades, perhaps centuries, but the Empire would transform from a tyranny into something resembling a federation. Captain Jinwoo watched the treaty signing with mixed feelings. They had won, but at a cost. 43 crew members had died on the Defiant Dawn, hundreds more in the relief fleet, and there was no guarantee the Vryn would honor the treaty forever. "Do you trust them?" Engineer Daeyoon asked quietly. "No," Jinwoo replied, "but I don't have to trust them. I just have to make sure they fear us enough to keep their word. And after what we did to their fleet, I think they'll remember that fear for a long time." 3 years passed. The Defiant Dawn was placed in a museum on Earth, a monument to the day humanity proved it would not bow to empires. Captain Jinwoo retired to teach at the Naval Academy, training the next generation of officers in adaptive tactics. Commander Taemin and Lieutenant Haywan led the reformed Vryn military. Their ships now included human advisors. Their training emphasized flexibility over rigid doctrine. Slowly, painfully, the Vryn learned to change. Commander Miran led the joint Vrin-human patrol fleet that protected the border regions. Former enemies working together against pirates and external threats. It was strange, awkward, and often frustrating. But it worked. On worlds throughout the 7 galaxies, enslaved species watched and hoped. The Vrin had blinked. The Eternal Empire had shown weakness, and if they could change once, they could change again. In a quiet museum, visitors walked past the Defiant Dawn and read the plaque beneath it. The words were simple but powerful. One ship, one crew, one moment of courage. Sometimes that's all it takes to change the galaxy.